Fratelloni's Hardware and Garden Stores brings you Garage Logic Podcast number 1027, March 1st.
Yes.
It's the first day of meteorological spring.
It's also the first day the Twins are on TV.
59 degrees was the high on this day in 1990. And for the second day in a row, the cold record was set in 1967. It was 32 below. And on this day in 2007, just a note for the first day of meteorological spring, almost 10 inches of snow.
Oh. Mm-hmm. And now, from the mayor's office above the boathouse on the east shore of Spoon Lake, it's Garage Logic with Chris Reavers manning Technology Corner, Kenny Olson from the Krabby Coffee Shop, John Heidt in the newsroom, and of course, the Rookie. Here is your flashlight king, fireworks commissioner, and the keeper of common sense, your mayor, Joe Souchere.
I think it's important to play our president.
Oh.
I'll set it up for you. To play our president, given the theme of today's show, it's comforting to know that our leader is rocking and rolling and ready to go. Yesterday, he apparently spoke to a group of health providers in Virginia, John? Was it Virginia?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And for some reason, he tailed off and started talking about a nurse.
And I had a nurse named Pearl Nelson, military. She'd come in and do things that I don't think you learn in medical school, nursing school. She'd whisper in my ear. I couldn't understand them. She'd whisper, she'd lean down. She'd actually breathe on me to make sure that there was a connection, a human connection. She even went home and brought back her pillow from her own bed because she knew the one I had, the one comfortable. But I'm not joking.
Well, that's good. He's not joking.
Well, it wasn't a funny joke if he was.
That was semi-creepy.
What was he on at that point? What drug was he on?
I don't know what they have him on.
Everything.
Because the theme of today's show is
We're bleeped?
China's trying to kill us.
Hey!
That's Reaver's theory.
Okay.
And you know what? I'm not going to object to his theory.
Okay.
Let's start with the pandemic. At the beginning of the pandemic, if people suggested that it began in a China lab and it was a lab leak, that was not an acceptable public position. Is that correct?
Xenophobic.
Yeah, that was not an acceptable. I'm serious now.
Yeah.
That was you would have been condemned as some sort of outlier.
Xenophobe.
Oh, you got kicked off of social media.
Right. And now, and I have this from the BBC. I could have chosen it from a variety of sources, but I want you to know it's not coming from me.
Okay.
It's coming from the BBC. FBI Director Christopher Wray has said that the Bureau believes COVID-19 most likely originated in a Chinese government-controlled lab. The FBI has for quite some time now assessed that the origins of the pandemic are most likely a potential lab incident, he said. It is the first public confirmation of the FBI's classified judgment of how the pandemic virus emerged. And, of course, there are scientists who point out there is no evidence that it leaked from a lab, and other U.S. government agencies have drawn different conclusions to the FBI's. Some of them have said, but with a low level of certainty, that the virus did not start in a lab, but instead jumped from animals to humans. And the White House has said there is no consensus across the government on the origins. But the FBI, apparently now the director is allowed to say this without recrimination. In other words, we've reached the point where that theory is as good as any other.
Okay.
Right? Mm-hmm. But at the beginning, that theory got you into a lot of trouble.
Right. You didn't know what you were talking about.
Well,
You're a black helicopter theorist.
A World Health Organization investigation was deeply criticized, and its director general has since called for a new inquiry, saying all hypotheses remain open and require further study. Mr. Wray's comments come a day after the U.S. ambassador to China called for the country to be more honest about COVID's origins.
Which they never will
I
be.
don't think China is capable of any kind of honesty whatsoever.
Right.
In his interview Tuesday, Wray said China has been doing its best to try to thwart and obfuscate efforts to identify the source of the global pandemic. He said details of his agency's investigation were classified, but the FBI had a team of experts focusing on the dangers of biological threats. And, of course, Beijing's response to that was political manipulation. And it goes on and on and on. And the only conclusion we can draw from this is that any theory you want is now in play, and I guess you won't be condemned for it.
Right.
Well, if we want to, back then, wasn't it also because the first, at least from my remembering that situation at that time, basically the first person to suggest that was the president, correct? And that's why a lot of people were dismissive of it. Is that fair, or is that not fair?
That's fair.
Well, he actually, though, there was a story about this online where he backed the Chinese government and what they were saying continuously.
Okay.
So he agreed with the Chinese government down the line that, whatever they said went, and that they were cooperating.
It's amazing how we forget such major trauma, just even from a few years ago.
I wonder what the great and high Lord Fauci has to say on these recent revelations.
Where's he been?
Well, he's there's about a month-old quote, Kenny, where he's doing an interview.
Open?
He says, "I'm open to any interpretation." He says, because we have no idea.
Yeah.
That's
the latest. That's the latest I could find too, but nothing here in the last day or so.
So it basically took 3 years to have it become permissible to say a lab leak is not out of the question. Early on, we were disabused of the notion of it being a lab leak. Mm-hmm. We weren't allowed to toy with that theory. And now we are. Lab leak seems reasonable to me, but what do I know?
Disabused is kind of a soft word in this case. Mm-hmm. We were more than just disabused.
Well, we were pummeled.
That's a better word, Joe. That's much better.
Well, even to the point where, remember when some had suggested that natural immunity would be just as, if not more effective than getting a vaccine, and you were also dismissed thoroughly if you were to suggest that.
Well, right on down the line, we could name everything regarding this event, and
and that has now since been. Even though didn't Osterholm say that on our show?
I don't recall.
Chris, you're right, but the number of people who got it, a larger number of those people would have died had you just relied on national immunity.
Got it.
Natural immunity,
Okay.
not natural.
And didn't I read something recently about Sweden, and that they were chastised in the very beginning for letting people catch it, and then now 3 years later, they're kind of being held up as a model of how it should be handled. I'm paraphrasing something I just scanned through a few days ago.
Well, it seems what has gotten lost is the idea that why wouldn't it have been a lab leak? It's a bunch of commies. They hate
China.
us, and they lie, and they want world control, and they have no moral or ethical integrity. I'm speaking of the government. And they're going to do whatever they want to do, and then they're going to lie to you about it because they're dirty, rotten commies.
You know what I like to say about China, Joe? They're not trustworthy.
Well, let's get to phase 2. Chris's.
Chris walked in today.
Chris, give me that quiz you gave me off the air.
Let me set it up.
Okay.
Let me set it up, then you can give the quiz.
I forget what the quiz was.
Reavers walks in today, and
I was all full of it today, man.
why the long horse?
Right.
Why the long face? Said the horse at the bar or whatever.
Something like that.
Something
Mr.
like
That's what
that.
she said. Why the
Something to do
long
with
horse?
Something to do with the long
Looky
face.
here.
She said, "Oh, whoa."
And Reavers said they're trying to kill us. And I said, who? And he said the Chinese. And my instant thought was, well, that would be cheaper than war. And your rationale for this, against my better judgment, I'm going to wow. I'm going to allow you to skate with it. You've got the puck. You're in your own end. You're breaking out. Let's go.
Am I Kaprasov right now?
Yes.
Chris, you asked me a question.
And I'm going to ask the same
More
to
like Reeves.
Rook and Johnny, although I'm not that tough.
Yeah.
Do you guys know what the number one cause of death was?
Is
It is in the United States of America.
Yes. Fentanyl.
Not, well, you're not supposed to answer.
God,
I would have said
He
cancer.
didn't get the
I would
memo.
have said cancer.
Okay.
can't play
blew it,
along.
didn't I? I didn't. I'm sorry.
Fentanyl-related overdose and whatnot. Okay.
One person every 8.57 minutes, 170 people per day.
Which some have also said is the number one reason why we have the homelessness problem is the addiction to drugs like fentanyl.
And then
right?
you asked me, where does it come from?
Guys, where does fentanyl come from?
Drug dealers.
China.
Oh, China.
Mexico.
Holy
China
cow.
to Mexico.
Johnny
China
nailed
to
it.
Mexico to the U.S.
Johnny's the first one to nail it.
Johnny's jumping ahead too. Yeah, and
Mexico
you're right,
has
John.
basically been the middleman for fentanyl distribution to this country from China to Mexico.
What can you demonstrate for me that that's accurate?
Joe, I'd like to provide you a document, a declassified document from the DEA. It's a DEA intelligence report titled.
DEA is the Department of. What is DEA? Drug Enforcement Agency.
Drug enforcement.
How come when we did this off the air,
It was so much
not,
smoother.
Not trying at all, just not thinking. It was golden. And now when we
All right,
put
Drug
effort into
Enforcement Agency, you may continue.
What we need to start doing is just not talk to each other before the show starts.
Yes.
Sorry,
That's what we
town
need to start
council. We're just
doing.
going to put bags over our heads.
This is dated January of 2020, a declassified document. It's a DEA intelligence report. Yes, Joe, the Drug Enforcement Agency is the DEA.
Thank you.
All right, an executive summary. The flow of fentanyl into the United States in 2019 is more diverse compared to the start of the fentanyl crisis back in 2014, with new source countries and new transit countries emerging as significant trafficking nodes. This is exacerbating the already multifaceted fentanyl crisis by introducing additional source countries into the global supply chain of fentanyl, fentanyl-related substances, and fentanyl precursors. So I said this to Joe because Joe was out of town. You guys recall 2 weeks ago the drug bust that we had in, I believe it was Uptown. And we had the new Hennepin County Sheriff, I forget her name, and she was at the podium, and the drugs that they seized from this one individual bust. You guys recall this story?
No.
I do, and I don't think I was out of town. I think we did mention it.
So there was enough fentanyl in this one case in South Minneapolis, Uptown, whatever area it was, that could have killed 300,000 people. And this is one person possessing that much fentanyl.
And isn't it true that the police carry some antidotal
Yes. To the
chemical
point
with
where,
them?
wasn't it a Florida police officer that had to have it administered to her because she was about to overdose from the exposure of the drug bust?
Apparently, though, that has been apparently that video's not. How shall we say? Yeah,
It's been
video was-
refuted.
yes, by doctors who said that could not have happened the way that it was portrayed.
Okay.
And also, the touch thing is not a.
Yeah, I've never heard of that.
Yeah.
Well, let's keep it dumb because we're dummies.
Fair enough.
What you're saying, Reavers, is that this is further evidence that China has found a means other than warfare of killing off the United States. That's your theory.
That's my theory.
Well, I can add to it.
Yes.
I can add to it.
We all got our tinfoil hats on.
Yep. And I don't mind putting it on
Land
once in a
that
while.
chopper right over here, that big black one.
I
that's
don't
coming.
mind. I don't mind.
Yeah, I'll jump in the chopper with you guys today. What the hell?
All right.
Now, granted, this is from the UK Sun, which is just another one of the fun tabloids.
Sure.
And you must take everything you read in the Sun with a grain of salt.
Okay.
I'd like to know where that phrase came from. What would a grain of salt mitigate? Take that with a grain of salt.
So, a grain of salt is very small.
Anyway,
Mysterious powder swamps U.S. skies as baffled residents report cars covered in murky dust
yeah,
across multiple counties.
right.
All right, and you turn to this. You get past all the bikini pictures, and you get back to the copy.
That's where I always get down the rabbit hole because
And
I
it
get
says the
sidetracked.
strange reports have prompted the West Virginia Department of Environmental Protection to investigate the powder. They will work with state and local agencies to collect and analyze samples of the substance. Residents in West Virginia's eastern panhandle, which is roughly 100 miles west of D.C., reported seeing the powder in multiple counties late Thursday night, meaning last week, apparently. The Maryland Department of the Environment said that the powder likely came from Texas and New Mexico, but they said a wind shift has since brought clean air from Canada. Monitoring systems recorded good air quality on Friday. And then we learned that this dust traveled east through Ohio, Michigan, and Kentucky. Satellite images captured by the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Association reportedly showed. A West Virginia state lab, here's a key, a West Virginia state lab will test the powder to see if it's related to the recent dust storms in the Midwest. All right, we don't know that yet. West Virginia Department of Environmental Protection said that there's no indication that the dust-like substance is related to the Ohio train derailment. He said that the northern panhandles hadn't had any air quality problems since the toxic train crash. It's been almost a month since a cargo train crashed in East Palestine, Ohio. While environmental officials continue to say that air quality levels in the area are normal, residents have complained about their health issues and they're worried about it. Headaches, rashes, nausea, sore throats. And then you have here's locals like Taylor Holzer. We've gone from the dust in the sky in the sun here to they've just tailspinned into the train crash. Locals like Taylor Holzer and his family who run Parker Dairy and live just outside the evacuation area are claiming to feel the effects of the crash. Holzer is registered as a fox keeper with the Ohio Department of Natural Resources and told WKBN that some of his foxes have been acting strange after the derailment, with a few having abnormally puffy faces and others refusing to eat. Many have also had stomach issues, according to Holzer. These issues, he claimed, are from the nearby derailment and the chemicals that were released. Smoke and chemicals from the train, that's the only thing that can cause it because it didn't just happen out of anywhere, Holzer claimed. The chemicals that were being told are safe in the air. That's definitely not safe for the animals or people. And that concludes the Sun story, which began with the unnerving story of a mysterious dust and then ended with the train crash.
All we are is dust in the wind.
That's right.
Such, while you were reading about the dust and while I read about it a few days ago, the only thing I could think of was those balloons that floated over the United States.
I thought the same thing.
Yeah.
I have the story. This is from Fox 9. Approximately 45,000 fentanyl pills were seized in a southern Minneapolis drug bust. Sheriff's office says the detectives responded to the area to intercept the suspects, leading to the arrest, as well as the discovery of approximately 45,000 fentanyl pills and a kilo of cocaine. In another story, they didn't cite how many people that could kill, but in another story out of San Francisco, a similar drug bust was found, and according to the San Francisco Police Department Chief Bill Scott, the fentanyl seized could have killed the entire population of San Francisco 4 times over. That's how.
So you got the fentanyl.
Yep.
You've got the mysterious balloons flying overhead that drop the magic dust. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And China is trying to kill us because it would be more efficient and less costly than out-and-out warfare. Makes Pooty-Poot look like a small player, doesn't it, Poot? It really does. He ain't doing any of this stuff that we know of. So here you got, I had another corroborating a bit of material for you to strengthen your argument. Go back to the lab leak, which is it's now okay to speculate a lab leak. It's not confirmed, but it's okay now to speculate a lab leak. You got the release of the fentanyl, and we don't know what these commies are doing flying their balloons around. And now we got dust falling in the wind and in Virginia and all over the place.
But I feel safe knowing we're protected by the administration we currently have.
Well, because he dealt with a nurse that learned things that you just don't learn in nursing school.
I'm sorry. I'm just going to practice dust in the wind.
Yeah. Boy, are we screwed.
And then
You know
you
what the
combine.
feeling it? You know what feeling it leads to be entirely serious?
Despair.
No, it leads to the a very unsettled feeling about what the hell's going on.
We don't know. We don't know what's around the corner, do we?
No.
No, we have no idea.
It's really disheartening to think that China is trying to kill us on the cheap, and then here at home, the Democrats are trying to kill the American dream and life in America as we know it.
I don't think that's an exaggeration.
I think we're on the wrong team for both.
Boy, are we outliers.
But did the fentanyl pills identify as him?
Yes.
Okay. That's all I care about.
What the hell's going on?
What's going
I mean,
on?
there was a video yesterday of a guy in St. Louis who it turns out had been released from jail because of a soft DA. And he's standing behind a homeless guy. A homeless guy is sitting on a curb in a downtown St. Louis street. You can look it up for yourself.
I saw it. I don't want to.
And he is calmly loading a pistol. The homeless guy, to my way of thinking, was even unaware that this guy was behind him. And the guy calmly loads his pistol, puts it at the back of the homeless guy's head, and murders him. And walks away. You got to throw the Samer theory into your theory. People are going nuts. And
They had a fight earlier, Joe.
They did?
Police say the fight early in the morning, apparently, and later in the day, the guy decided he would shoot him.
And I bet it was over something really important.
Oh, I'm sure it was something stupid.
And the guy had previously been charged with other felonies and was released by a Soros-backed DA. I've gotten your hand signals plenty here,
I know.
pal. You can take it away.
I'm only worried about our guest.
We have Ramsey County Sheriff Bob Fletcher coming up at
10 minutes ago.
About 15 minutes. No, 15 minutes.
12:45. We changed it to
okay.
45.
I should hit that button then.
Nursing school.
Here's a man who
Still
spends
hearing
hours
voice
in
president.
hardware stores.
I can hear
Teaching the
Biden,
nuts
yeah.
and bolts of
Still
life.
playing on loop.
Joe Souchere.
I've got news this news is so good. It's better than cheese sandwiches for everybody. It's from Tri-State Bobcat. They're coming into spring with deals that are absolutely amazing. Just go ahead and throw that shovel away right now. Get yourself a Toro snowblower from Tri-State Bobcat. If you've been holding out for the right price, the time is right now. You're going to get sale prices on Toro Power Clear single-stage blowers and Power Max two-stage snow blowers. You can get that shovel, throw it away, get behind a Toro snowblower, and have fun. It's snow removal, space management is a blast with a Toro snow thrower. If you're thinking about summer and a zero-turn mower, right now also the time. The best discounted pricing you can find on select previous model years, brand new. We're talking Time Cutter and Titan zero-turn mowers, anywhere from 42-inch up to 60-inch, with discounts ranging from 10 to 20% under promo pricing. 20% is pretty significant when you start getting up there in dollars. There's so many snow blowers and carryover zero turns and new models. I mean, I've got a 3-page list. I can't name them all. So here's what you do: get on the phone. Call any of the Tri-State Bobcat locations. First of all, tell them I'm a GLer, and you need a snow blower or a zero turn. Toro, they make it all fun, whether it's lawn cutting or blowing snow. And even more good news, if you're a GLer on the southern side of the state, Tri-State Bobcat now owns Mankey's Outdoor Equipment in Owatonna. And since they are now part of the Tri-State family, all the pricing and promos are also available in Owatonna. 3 locations in the metro: Burnsville, Little Canada, and Hudson. You can see everything that Tri-State carries. And boy, do they carry a lot, including the Toro. Go to their website, tristatebobcat.com.
Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot came in third place Monday in the mayoral election and did not make the runoff in April. She's out. And she displays no character whatsoever. She really never has. She said, well, the only reason I'm out is because I'm a black female. No, Lori, you're an incompetent fool. And Chicago's crime problem became a theme of the election and you were fated to lose. Now, she'll be a real test of my theory.
Get out of my head. That was my first. I was waiting for you to finish. I was going to ask that question.
She'll be a real test of my theory that with each succeeding election, you regret the predecessor, or you miss the predecessor, because the two guys who survived and will be in the runoff are Chicago Public Schools CEO and City Budget Director Paul Vallis against Cook County Board of Commissioners member Brandon Johnson. Now, I don't know about those two.
Are they guys that are running because they've just had enough of
But
her
if this clown who's the superintendent of the St. Paul schools ran for mayor, he wouldn't get my vote. So here you got the Chicago Public Schools CEO and City Budget Director. Doesn't that seem like two major tasks?
Yeah.
I wonder why they're combined in that manner. Chicago Public Schools CEO and City Budget Director Paul Vallis against Cook County Board of Commissioners member Brandon Johnson. And Lightfoot's reign has been marked by her poor relationship with the city's police department. And she faced challenges from 8 candidates, but she failed to make the runoff because she finished third. No candidate surpassed the 50% threshold. After the mayor's defeat, critics wasted no time in expressing their pleasure that Chicago will soon have new leadership touching primarily on the city's crime wave. Gino Caldwell, a Fox News political analyst whose brother was killed in Chicago last summer, wrote that Lori Lightfoot experiment is officially over. Thank you, Chicago. And we also learned that many people were weighing in on this on Twitter, but I don't read Twitter comments. So Kayleigh McEnany, wonder if that's a relation to our local McEnany. Kayleigh McEnany, co-host of Fox News' Outnumbered show, highlighted remarks she made, called Lightfoot the derelict mayor of Chicago for her handling of Chicago's crime wave and suggested the Democrats seek federal assurances to secure the city. Lightfoot responded on Twitter at the time by telling McEnany, "Hey, Karen, watch your mouth." So she thought McEnany was a Karen, which has become a name for, a busybody? It's great that Lightfoot is gone, but we don't know about the two who survived. Contributor editor at The Spectator, Stephen L. Miller, wrote, perhaps Lori Lightfoot would have won if thousands of her voters had not been shot.
Whoa.
Wow.
Pow.
Yikes.
She's the first Chicago mayor in 40 years to lose re-election. That's how bad that city is.
I would not want to live there.
And I was speaking to some people in the Windy City, and they were grateful that this developed. She was terribly unliked and apparently is terribly unlikable. And she is saying that she's trying to play the race card. It's too late, but people like her play the race card because they have no personal integrity or character. And she was a complete failure, and now Chicago moves on. To what end, I have no idea. It's going to test the theory.
Right.
My God, I hope the theory that gets tested is, I hope it doesn't come true this time. And
I'll tell you one
go
thing,
ahead.
Joe, you may not have noticed about the one fellow, which may make it a bad deal,
Yeah.
Brandon Johnson.
Yeah.
He's also listed as an organizer, as a
Community organizer. All right.
Yeah, he's Brandon Johnson. He's a Chicago Teachers Union organizer. A community
Oh,
organizer.
so he's as corrupt as it
Brandon
gets.
Johnson. Yeah. So he's the one that came
he's
in second.
He's a member of the Cook County Board of Commissioners.
Yes, and Chicago Teachers Union organizer.
Who was the last good mayor they had?
Who was the best cheater?
Okay, who was?
Well, it
let
wasn't
me
the
rephrase
Daley.
that.
It wasn't the Daley regime, although under the Daleys, the city ran
Right.
well.
Maybe I should rephrase it. When was the last time they had a mayor that wasn't a crook?
Well,
You might have to go.
Yeah, you're going back
Maybe
pretty
never.
far.
1800s.
we have spoken about the DFL locally ramming through every dream they've had as long as they're...
Happy 2-month anniversary to the new regime.
Yes. We now have a Democratic Minnesota legislator named Heather Keeler. She's a DFLer from, what area is she from?
I believe
She's
Moorhead.
DFL Moorhead.
Yep.
And she is saying that it is genocide for white Christians to adopt Native American children. I'm sick of white Christians adopting our babies and rejoicing. It's a really sad day when that happens. It means the genocide continues, Representative Heather Keeler, DFL Moorhead, said on Facebook. If you care about our babies, advocate against the genocidal help, the actual issues impacting Indigenous parents. Stop stealing our babies and changing their names under the impression that you are helping. And she ended her post with, white saviors are the worst.
Wow.
Yeah.
Does she have any proof that these children are being adopted and then killed?
I don't
Because
think
that's
so.
what she makes it sound like.
And then she also concludes her post by saying, I said what I said. Keeler is the lead author of a bill to incorporate provisions of the Federal Indian Child Welfare Act into state law. The U.S. Supreme Court is expected to issue a ruling this spring on a case that challenges the constitutionality of the Indian Child Welfare Act. Keeler's bill seeks to modify the Minnesota Indian Family Preservation Act with provisions from the ICWA. According to the Bureau of Indian Affairs, ICWA recognizes tribal jurisdictions over decisions for their Indian children in state child custody proceedings. It also establishes minimum federal standards for the removal of Indian children from their families. Well, I would say this, that Keeler knows more about this than I do. I'm unaware of this being a problem. I didn't know that white Christians adopting Indian children was a problem.
Is she implying that they're going on the reservations and adopting these babies from, maybe mothers that weren't ready yet or whatever the case
I think
may
I can
be?
help you. Representative Alicia Kozlowski, a DFLer from Duluth and co-sponsor of Keeler's bill, said the legislation would codify ICWA into state law. ICWA, again, is the Federal Indian Child Welfare Act. Throughout history, according to Kozlowski from Duluth, the United States and Minnesota have carried out intentional and horrific methods of removal and disconnection of our Native children from their families and their culture, Kozlowski said during a recent hearing on the bill, which is House File 1071. In Minnesota, American Indian children are 16.4% more likely than white children to be placed out of the home, according to Kozlowski. The bill would place the following language into state law. The state of Minnesota recognizes all federally recognized Indian tribes as having the inherent authority to determine their own jurisdiction for any and all Indian child custody or child placement proceedings, regardless of whether the tribe's members are on or off the reservation and regardless of the procedural posture of the proceeding. Raising our next generation and keeping them in our indigenous families is essential to preserving our culture, language, traditions, and way of life, Keeler said in a press conference after the hearing. Okay? She knows more about it than I do.
The ICWA was originally passed in 1978 in response to compelling evidence of the high number of Indian children that were being removed from their families by public and private agencies and placed in non-Indian families. So it's been around for 40 years.
And I don't know why a white family would deprive an Indian child of the child's natural upbringing. I'm always under the assumption that adoptions occur because a child has either been abandoned or doesn't have parents or what have you. If in fact there are Americans who have the propensity to go onto a reservation and take a child, I certainly think Keeler probably has some point that she's trying to make here. Leave us alone. You're not supposed to do that.
Well, I think your tribal members and your tribal council are the ones that are going to determine whether a white person can come in and, I mean, they're sovereign.
I'm on a pretty sturdy limb here, I think. Genocide's a strong word.
I think so.
Yeah.
But is it in reference to the families that do the adopting or the group that takes away the parental rights? She doesn't make that distinction, does she?
Yeah, and I don't know the process for adopting a native child. But she did got her licks in. She got her licks in condemning white people.
She's not making it clear what she's talking about. She just she makes it sound like white people that want to adopt are evil.
That's what she makes it sound like. Yes.
God bless you.
Thank you.
This is the first day of meteorological spring. I need it warmer than this to drive my Yamaha scooter, currently in storage at EcoFun Motorsports in Forest Lake. Perhaps yours is too. They not only store it, they tend the battery, tune it up, change the oil, and in my case, change the coolant. I can't wait to get it back. Tim Bloom will deliver it once the weather turns. And I can't recommend highly enough that you visit EcoFun Motorsports in either Forest Lake or Burnsville. Great selection of all those scooters that turn urban errands into adventures, electric bicycles, youth recreational equipment, those cool golf carts that I saw and sat in during the golf show. I really have a keen interest in acquiring one of those golf carts. And great apparel. They got the helmets. They got the great service. The brand new EcoFun opened just this past summer on Highway 97. Just west of 35, up in the Forest Lake area and down in Burnsville on the service road of life near County Road 42. Did I make a mistake?
No.
You were grinning there, and I thought, I made an error.
Just laughing.
Well, just and go to their
Aside
website.
from Reavers, you're talking too slow now.
It's very cool. Go to ecofunmotorsports.com. Was that long?
No, I was just...
Here's a guy that forgot to play a liner.
Here's a man who's not the most interesting person in the world, Joe Souchere.
Rich at Maple Grove Lock and Safe is still celebrating President's Day, and his President's Day sale is running through March 14th. You can save up to $400 on select Liberty safes. Now listen to these options. There's a couple of Centurion 24s with 40-minute fire protection. They're on the list. The USA series with level 3 security and a 1-hour fire rating. Yep, they're on sale. The Colonial series, level 4 security, 75-minute fire protection. They're on sale. The Fat Boy, level 5, 110 minutes. And the big one, the Lincoln series with a level 7 security rating and a 2-hour fire protection rate. Also on sale. Save up to $400 through March 14th. The Liberty Safe lineup, of course, as we all know, the best money can buy, made right here in the United States of America. Transferable lifetime warranties, and thanks to Rich at Maple Grove Lock and Safe, professional delivery and installation always available. And as adults, that's what we do. Stop in, say hi to Rich, 6901 East Fish Lake Road, and check out the entire lineup. By the way, you can also see them on the web, maplegrovelockandsafe.com.
We're joined by Ramsey County Sheriff Bob Fletcher, who's been in the news lately. Bob is often in the news. I'm sure he's a bit unhappy by this time being in the news. How are you?
Good, but never unhappy. Actually, you used to put me in the news once in a while, Joe.
I have for years. You
Thank you.
You fight crime, and I get the sense that members of the Ramsey County Board take issue with some of your positions. Is that accurate?
Well, the public is the driving force here. I mean, the homicide rate was at a record last year. Carjackings were at a record the year before. We have stabbings and shootings at our schools. I mean, it really is our job to respond to the public concerns regarding crime.
Right.
You know, we try to do that. We have several initiatives, but unfortunately, some elected officials still would prefer to defund law enforcement and not recognize the importance of it. And, you know, they're behind the times. They're 3 to 4 years back, and the public is responding with a demand that we do something to make them safer.
Explain the letter you wrote to the board for us.
Well, we've been asking for additional resources to fight crime for the past 3 years and been turned down every time. And not only that, our budget was cut. And unilaterally, they decided that we're going to cut $2 million from your budget. The theory was that, everyone was suffering under COVID, and so they unilaterally cut us the same as others. But one of the cuts was a vacancy factor where they said every department has to have 4% of their personnel costs cut. But unfortunately for us, we can't leave positions vacant.
Right.
We have to fill them with overtime because we're a 24-hour operation, both in the jail and on the street, and that was a $1.2 million cut. So they put us at a big disadvantage. And at some point, and Joe, I've been at this. This has been my career since 1977.
Mm-hmm.
I can't just sit back and watch us have our hands tied when it comes to fighting crime.
I wonder if the Ramsey County Board cut 4%.
Well, they've added several administrators. If you look at the number of bodies they've added.
Love it.
Spread out. Huh? Yeah, there you go. They've in the county manager's office, which someday you and I will have a meeting and talk about the county manager's office expansion because it's just exploded over the last 2 years.
Where do they get the budget for it, Sheriff?
I don't know. I mean, they're in charge of all the shells over there, so it's a shell game, and they're able to, take money from one and give it to their administration.
Well, because you neglected to include a few people in your letter, those people that got excluded, they're playing the race card, for God's sakes.
Well, and I'm glad you raised that issue. It wasn't actually the people that got excluded that were playing that card. What happened was there's 2 brand new commissioners. They just started in January, and I didn't think it was fair or kind for me to include them in my letter talking about the past 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
If I had included them, they would have said, "Well, I wasn't here. How can you really blame me?" And they would have been right. So I did not include the 2 brand new members, and I didn't include Rafael Ortega because Rafael has always dealt with us in a professional way and listens to our concerns, and he's been a supporter of law enforcement. The other 4 are the ones that have collectively cut our budget and really, set us up for failure in regards to the jail overcrowding as well, which we've brought that issue of jail overcrowding to them 5 times last year.
For a public safety standpoint, where does the city stand right now over the length of your career?
Yeah. Well, if you just look at the numbers, we're clearly on the homicide numbers. We're at the highest we've ever been. Now, having said that, we've curtailed the carjackings on this side of the river substantially. We've had a focused effort, with our CAT team, our carjacking team. So compared to Minneapolis, there really is no comparison. What happens is Minneapolis is down 300 officers desperately trying to catch up, and their crime rates are still high. Every week there's several carjackings in Minneapolis. Most of the offenders know that they're better off going over to Minneapolis than they are here. But that really isn't any solace for us St. Paulites because eventually the problems in Minneapolis will extend to the whole metro area, and they are. So here's the thing I know about crime, and I've been doing this for a while. The demographics in terms of the number of people in the most frequent age group to commit crime. Really, you're talking about 16 to 25.
Mm-hmm.
As baby boomers and go through these different phases, that drives the actual numbers of crime. But there's a variety of other factors that are troublesome. I mean, with poverty, lack of education are huge. School safety, the politics of school safety, and you know that I'm a big supporter of having school resource officers in the schools. I'm not saying we don't need more counselors. I'm not saying that we don't need more social workers and mental health therapists. We need it all. School ought to be the one place that we can assure some safety. And if you remember back a couple years ago, Joe, the Highland Villager down in your neighborhood, there wrote a story and surveyed all the principals and the students, and 94% of 11th grade students said they would prefer to have SROs, school resource officers, in the schools. And of course, there was a big meeting last night. You probably saw in the news.
I did.
People talking about that, and it isn't that we have to choose between one or the other. We should do everything that can help our kids feel comfortable in school.
Well, Harding sounds like it's run like a Salvadoran prison. It just sounds horrific, and a lot of that blame's got to go back to these kids are just getting lousy parenting.
Well,
you don't have to say that. I'll be glad to say it.
No. Parenting is always an issue. It's an early issue. It's upstream, but nobody disputes that. Education and the ability to read affects a child's self-esteem and how they do in school. But I don't really think it is constructive to engage in the parent debate because we got what we got, and we should try to help the kids once they're in school in any way that we can. And, to be frank, there's things that we can do better throughout the educational system. But talk about Harding, the bathrooms should never be exclusionary zones where some kids aren't allowed in because they're controlled by others. Yeah. Hallways shouldn't be walked nonstop without kids going to school. Someone should enforce the fact you need to go to a class. So there's a variety of things that have been talked about. The teachers have alerted the administration to them, and I'm hoping we're going to see some improvement. Actually, the superintendent indicated last week they were going to make some changes there. But, this is a big job. This is a big job helping kids succeed, which should be all of our goals, helping kids succeed. And right now, in addition to what's happening in the schools, we have two groups of kids in St. Paul, two groups that have been shooting at each other since last October. And I won't mention them by name because they like hearing their group name.
All right.
But I have to tell you, they're 14 to 16, 17 years old. They are on social media daily threatening each other, showing guns, and every so often something happens. Antoine Watson was killed in an alley on the east side last October.
Right.
That suspect in that is in custody in the juvenile detention center. That has evolved into a series of other threats and shootings. You saw the ox cart the car drove through there. That was two cars shooting at each other.
Right.
And the occupants of that car were friends of the deceased from Harding.
Right.
Sheriff.
Go ahead.
Excuse me for interrupting you, but when are they going to change that so that kid's in juvenile detention, 14 to 16? When are they going to lower this 18? These kids are growing up so early that a 14-year-old has a presence how to use a gun of it poorly or drive a car.
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure what needs to change first. Clearly, a child can be certified at age 16 or less than that if the court can demonstrate a reason for that. But for me, that isn't the place to start. The place to start is holding kids accountable in some form of juvenile detention facility for 3 to 6 months, where they can get treatment for their addiction, for their mental health, for all the social issues that they have, get away from their other group. We need facilities that can hold kids for 3 to 6 months locally here, where we can service them with other people from the community. And the closing of Totem Town by the Ramsey County Board in 2019 hurt that effort. Now, we have a bill in front of the legislature. Actually, Pat Connolly's wife, you've probably heard of him, and I know your relatives had a terrible situation, Joe, too. Same thing. His wife was carjacked, and they almost took their small child with them. He's been the leader to help us get this bill to where it will probably be passed, where we have 5 to 7 secure houses.
Yep.
Kids can't get out of, and they can get long-term treatment for their issues. And we don't have the alternatives available since Boys Totem closed down to actually treat kids in a way to help them succeed. And that has to be one of our top priorities.
I agree, and I've talked to Conley about this, and Troy's on board, and you're on board. It sounds like this could happen.
I think it will. And, it's unfortunate that enough people have to be victims of a carjacking in order for it to happen. It would be nice if we could think a little further ahead on public policy regarding crime and get ahead of this in the future.
Go back to school resource officers for a moment. You have a very weak school board. They even have on board a member who tried to start her own race incident, Chantel something. You've just got some really bad people on the school board. They took the school resource officers out. Would a school resource officer have prevented what happened at Harding?
Yes. A school resource officer in that school would have been able to intervene and neutralize that fight before the knife was drawn. And it's just a very, very difficult situation for a staff member or a principal or a counselor, even an unarmed security guard, to confront a fight where there may be a weapon.
Right.
They shouldn't have to do that. And the officers are trained. They have body armor. They have they have a taser, they have mace, there's other things, plus the mere presence of an officer there would make it less likely that fight would start. So yes, I believe if the school resource officer was there instead of a staff member, Devin Scott would not be dead.
Well, the other thing, and I believe you were the one who said it, what we've learned is that one of the ways the St. Paul Public Schools is such a miserable failure is that they're taking troublesome kids and they're just moving them from school to school. And I think it was you who said cops would have known that young Devin just arrived at Harding. They would have known some background and they would have had their eyes out. Is that correct?
That's 100% true. School resource officers have access to the information that can help them. And, I worked with Devin for a year and a half trying to help him choose the right course.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no question. The other thing about school resource officers is they're mentors, they're role models. Many kids have come into law enforcement because they had a good relationship with the school resource officer.
Mm-hmm.
There's someone people can go to. I just think the sad part is, school board member Chantel Allen, who you're referring to, in her Facebook post, she concluded by saying SROs, school resource officers, are still killer cops.
Well, she's a miserable fool who shouldn't even have been elected.
Well, I've dealt with miserable elected officials before, and some would say maybe still am. However, they knew not to utter words like SROs are still killer cops.
Right.
Yeah.
There should be a line there.
Yeah.
Sheriff, it's Kenny. I was referring to this piece that was in the St. Paul paper over the weekend. I was stunned to learn, and I think the figure was 30 to 40 or more students walking the halls during class. Would a school resource officer also bring that to an end?
Well, I think they could certainly help. That policy would still be set by the principal, and they could determine what their policy was going to be. I mean, I go back to the days that we had a truancy center, an alternative place that kids were taken to when they refused to go to class back in the late 90s. There are a lot of alternatives that are available to get kids out of the hall. It might just be tell them you have to leave. And by the way, your parents are going to be told, they're going to be a knock on the door from a truancy officer telling them that you refuse to go to class. So that could be monitored. The thing about that story, and Josh Burgess did an amazing story. That might have been the finest piece of reporting that I've seen in 15 years.
I say it's the most important story that we've ever run.
I think it is, and you and I have been around for a while. I think that was an amazing story, and I got to give him credit. But the one of the parts of that story, besides all the teacher input, schools should be for the kids that want to learn, right? Mm-hmm. We can't let the 1 to 3% of the kids that don't want to learn stop the other ones from learning.
Mm-hmm.
And so once we get our mind wrapped around the small numbers, and Joe, let me just say that when I talk about kids that need to be held, I'm talking about a small number in Ramsey County. We're talking 30 to 50 kids.
Mm-hmm.
30 to 50 kids out of literally thousands and thousands of children in Ramsey County. 30 to 50 that need accountability, but because the system does not hold them accountable, they continue to victimize and cause problems for the rest of us.
But to me, one of the most amazing aspects of that Harding story was the idea that teachers fear recrimination if they report problems. I don't understand that.
Yeah, I don't either.
Yeah.
And but it's obviously felt by a lot of people. I don't know if you remember Roy Magnuson. Roy Magnuson was a teacher at Como.
Yeah.
And 15 years ago, he tried to alert the school district to this problem.
Right.
This growing problem of behavior. Really, it's a behavior issue of misbehavior and poor behavior and unwillingness to listen to principals and no structure in the schools to deal with misbehavior. And a lot of people that you weren't happy with them now are saying, you were right, Roy. We should have listened to you 15 years ago.
Well, it's happening again. They're not listening to the teachers at Harding. Let's just take Harding. They're not being listened to. And this was the end result, was a murder in your school.
Right. Well, and it won't be the last one unless they get serious. The things are escalating amongst these young kids and guns. And sadly, because there are enough out there carrying guns, now more are resorting to carrying guns and, of course, using their protection line as the reason they're carrying guns. But I'll tell you what, I will say this. I met Monday night and today again with Mickey Frost up at the Truth Center.
Mm-hmm.
And Mickey pulled together 50 leaders in the black community that are just ready to go out and work with these kids. And hopefully Mickey has gotten a contract now to go into school and be a de-escalator, a communicator, and working with these kids. And I got to tell you, that's our best hope. Our best hope is to have community leaders say, I want to go into the school and help neutralize these conflicts, talk to these kids, become a role model for them, take them to ball games, take them to do different activities. And, you know, if people really want to lick this problem, it's an hour and a half a week of volunteer time helping our children succeed.
Okay, Sheriff, you just brought up something I wanted to raise, but I was afraid to because I thought it came from a naive position. It seems to me what these kids lack is hope. And it seems that they're probably too cynical to get hope or inspiration from the people that are already there. And I'm thinking that program is exactly what these kids need. They need hope. They need to see that there is life beyond this and that they can make untold millions if they want, if they just ignore the criminal life. Am I being stupid, or is that true?
Nope. You're right. They need hope and an inspiration as a way. But I would say I use the other word. They need something to aspire to achieve.
Right.
You know, they need exposure to role models and different jobs and stuff, so that they can figure out that their aspirational endeavors can be achieved. And we need volunteers to help in that. And you know, if people want to, you can get a hold of me on Facebook. Send a message via Facebook to my personal page or to the Live on Patrol page. And, you know, we're going to start collecting volunteers that can work with these kids, the most troubled kids.
I appreciate it, sir.
You know,
let's talk again.
There is hope.
All right.
How's Live on Patrol going?
Live on Patrol is going great. We got Under Sheriff Mike Martin on Mondays, the CAT team on Wednesdays, and yours truly and Pat on Friday nights.
All right.
And, of course, Nick at night, late at night.
Yeah.
We'd love to have you guys join us.
Stay away from my house. All you're going to do is bring trouble.
I never tell him your address.
He's over there on Main. He's up there on Main.
Thanks, Bob.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you. Bob Fletcher is the sheriff of Ramsey County, and he, unlike a lot of the people he has to work for, he takes crime very seriously.
Yes, he does.
Yes, he does. Why don't you take a break, and we'll return with John Heidt.
You know who else takes their job very
The
serious?
people at the water company.
I do.
Rookie does.
Yes.
Rookie?
Also, Linda Keller and Keller Tax Service.
Does she take it seriously?
Guess who's made the switch already?
You.
And
Kenny.
Kenneth
Kenny?
Allen.
Yeah,
All right.
I'm gonna run over there and drop my stuff off.
You know
yeah.
what we have? Kenny, we have a guy. Except a guy is
Well,
Linda.
a girl can be a guy.
Right, exactly. So Linda Keller, diehard GLer, she's been doing tax preparation for over 20 years, and she also prepares all types of returns for all types of professions and businesses. She has also perfected the virtual tax appointment via video or phone, and it's safe document exchange, both encrypted and secure. It's the confidence of a professional with the convenience of maybe staying right at home. She also has competitive pricing to do-it-yourself software. So the flat fee includes state income tax return, e-filing of all returns, and direct deposit of any and all refunds. Here's how you can book your appointment today. Call 320-352-0013 or visit her website, kellertaxservice.com. 320-352-0013 or kellertaxservice.com. Don't wait until the last minute. Get that appointment booked today, and please let Linda know you heard about her here on the Garage Logic podcast. What does this button do?
Good one, Chris.
Thank you.
He doesn't have Nudical Naturals.
This guy
He's
wears
got a
many
real
hats,
pair.
just not indoors.
Joe Souchere. Oh, I'm talking about pairing things up like your heating unit and finding someone that can work on it and have a lot
Your
of
heating
history.
unit.
Your heating unit.
Let's get that going.
If your unit gets heated up
We don't want that.
and you need it to cool down,
Yeah, cool
call
down that
Welter.
unit.
Yes. WelterHeating.com.
Ray wants all his money back now.
No, they told me have fun with the ads. Don't sit and talk about a train filter or something for 1 minute. We don't care about that. We want people to know that at Ray and Welter Heating, they are garage logicians. They've been around over a century. Remember, you're seeing all sorts of ads where people pop up with the funny jingle and they've been in business for 5-10 years. I'm going to trust Ray and Welter Heating because they've been around for 4 generations in Minneapolis for 100 years. Their phone number is 612-825-6867. And whether it's heating, cooling, air purification, they serve the entire metro area. Go to their website and poke around. You'll find that you might even learn something. All you need to do is call 612-825-6867 or go to their website, welterheating.com. Schedule an appointment. Maybe there's nothing wrong with your heating unit right now, and you want to just have them come out and check it out. Well, it's springtime, almost springtime right now. Not too early to think about that air conditioning unit as well. 612-825-6867. All they want you to do is remember the name and call them if you have a problem. It's welterheating.com. Air condition your shelter with Ray and Welter.
And John, do you know that tonight
Thanks, Welter.
Jupiter and Venus have a conjunction junction?
I did not know that.
Boy, they've been bright lately, right next to each other.
Jordy
They have
thinks I
been,
won't see it. He says, conjunction junction, what's your function?
Yeah.
It's Venus and Jupiter tonight in a stunning planetary conjunction.
And most likely you're not going to be able to see Uranus.
Probably not. It's very cloudy and all that. Here's John
And
Heidt
need
in
a
his,
mirror. I
Very
think.
flexible, yeah.
his newsroom.
Go ahead,
Thanks
John.
for that.
There's the
Thanks
plate.
for that
Here you go.
classy
Pass the plate
intro,
to John.
Hey, Joe, can you take a selfie for me? What's going on down there?
Before I get to news, I must affirm something Mr. Reavers said earlier. He was correct. The ex-president, Donald Trump, did float the idea. It came from a lab. And, of course, got a lot of clapback.
Was
and
ridiculed.
feedback. Yes. And at that point, that's when he started, he backed off and said, okay, well, China's doing what they can to help us, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah,
Don't
but
say blah,
now
blah,
it's
blah.
okay to say what Trump said.
But now it's okay to say that, yes. And grain of salt.
Orange man.
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm glad you looked at
I
it.
had to look it up.
None of
Somebody-
the other staff jumped to that, John.
the origins
Got it.
aren't, well, 100% clear, but some think it originated in ancient times, specifically 77 AD from Pliny the Elder.
Oh, Pliny, yeah.
Pliny. Isn't there a beer called Pliny the
I
Elder,
think
which is
there
supposed
is.
to be fabulous?
Yeah.
I'll never know now.
Oh,
But
neither will I.
it's believed he used the phrase when translating an antidote for poison, saying to take it with a grain of salt.
Oh.
And others think it just came into the mainstream in the 20th century when people said, don't worry about it, take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
there
okay.
you go.
Thank you.
So we don't really know.
No, we really don't.
I did have that up here. I just didn't want to interrupt, but I will show you that. Grain of salt.
You did not.
I did too. I swear on your mother's grave.
Oh, don't do that.
Yeah, please. In other news, more than 200 people filed into the auditorium at Washington Technology Magnet School last night to speak out about school safety issues in front of the St. Paul School Board. They came to express concerns and suggestions after the recent stabbing death of 15-year-old Devin Scott at Harding High School. A man who said he was Scott's cousin offered an opinion saying, we cannot get him back, but we can save her kid, and his kid, he said, pointing around to the audience. One unidentified St. Paul public school teacher told the audience her elementary school children, have not escaped the violence or the trauma. She said, as an elementary educator, I worry deeply about our students' future. Another middle school teacher who was not identified said her students were also facing serious challenges. SPPS Superintendent Dr. Joe Gothard and the entire SPPS school board listened for more than 2 hours, but didn't take any formal action.
The school board should be disbanded. They are not competent. They are not wise. They are driven by activism. They are driven by cliches. They have contributed to the complete failure of the academy.
But again, it's not like they're the coach of an NFL team. If they don't succeed, they get fired, right? A coach does.
Yeah, these people,
that doesn't matter. There's no accountability.
More good, decent people have to run for the school board.
Yeah, well, it goes for pretty much every
Right.
government.
Yeah.
Every
Position.
just do your jobs,
I
right?
agree.
I mean that's
Yeah.
that's important.
Yeah, you serve us. You don't rule over us.
That's the problem.
One of the two men who were charged and convicted for their roles in a deadly shooting outside of a Richfield school last year was sentenced yesterday. This morning sentenced. A judge ordered 19-year-old Fernando Valdez Alvarez to spend more than 23 years behind bars. You might remember that shooting. It killed 15-year-old Jamari Rice outside the South Education Center just over a year ago. Two others, a 17 and 19-year-old, survived the shooting. Valdez Alvarez pleaded guilty to one count of second-degree murder and first-degree assault. That plea was entered just weeks before a jury trial was scheduled to begin. Alfredo Rosario Salas, the other man who was charged and convicted in the shooting, was sentenced in January to serve 36 months in prison for second-degree assault. Valdez Alvarez received credit for 394 days he's already served. The man who was found guilty of killing Minneapolis North High School student Deshaun Hill Jr. has now been sentenced to spend years in prison. Last month, a jury convicted 30-year-old Cody Forencam of second-degree murder after Hill's death last year. Hennepin County Judge Julie Allen yesterday sentenced Forencam to 463 months or 38 and a half years in prison. He must spend two-thirds of that sentence behind bars. Hill was walking home from school on February 9, 2022, when he was shot and killed. Prosecutors say Hill and Forencam brushed shoulders while walking past each other, and that's when Forencam turned around and shot Hill and ran away.
You don't get to shoot somebody for brushing shoulders.
No.
Whatever happened to? Oh, excuse me.
Yeah,
Just trying to
excuse
get
me.
by. Just trying to get by here.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Republicans in the Minnesota legislature presented their plan for at least part of Minnesota's budget surplus yesterday. House and Senate GOP leaders unveiled their tax relief plan, which they've dubbed the Give It Back plan, that includes permanent tax cuts for the elderly, property owners, and parents. The plan outlines using $5 billion of the state surplus for one-time rebate checks and $3.5 billion for one-time child tax credits over 2 years. The plan calls for the checks to be worth $1,250 for single filers and $2,500 for joint filers. Additionally, Republicans are continuing to push for a rollback of Social Security taxes. Republicans hope to eliminate the tax on Social Security, which they say would provide almost 500,000 Minnesotans with an average tax reduction of $1,277. Republicans didn't voice much support for a rebate back in the last session, but they now say it's time to give the permanent tax cuts. All Republicans are in the minority in both chambers, meaning their proposals won't be approved without support from at least some DFL lawmakers. Caucus leaders said some DFL lawmakers also ran for office on promises of tax relief, specifically on Social Security benefits. Star Tribune reporting 2 men are charged in what investigators think is a bias-motivated assault after a transgender woman suffered critical injuries during an attack at Minneapolis Light Rail Station Monday morning that left her hospitalized with critical injuries. Metro Transit Police responded to the Lake Street Light Rail Station about 9:45 in the morning after a 911 caller advised dispatch that the victim was lying on the floor of the lower-level North Tower with, in that person's words, visible brain matter on the ground.
Oh, that's not good.
Okay,
Oh.
Surveillance cameras at the station captured images of 3 men beating her and pushing her downstairs. Paramedics got there to find the woman largely unresponsive, badly bruised, and bleeding from serious head trauma. Authorities tracked 2 of the 3 suspects, the 23-year-old Kevin York Jr. of St. Paul and 19-year-old Keaton Morris of Minneapolis, were each charged in Hennepin County District Court yesterday with aggravated assault and third-degree assault, both felonies. They remain jailed. Morris is named on Metro Transit's trespass list for using narcotics inside the Lake Street Light Rail Station. York has a previous third-degree assault conviction from 2021.
John, your news today is of a dystopian nature. And
Yes, it is.
Reavers, China doesn't have to kill us. We're going to do it to ourselves.
Okay.
We seem to be.
I made that very same statement to someone roaming around my house as I was writing it.
Really?
I said, this is a dour look at what's going on.
It really
here in the
is.
Twin Cities. Yep. As you said earlier, Joe, Lori Lightfoot became a one-term mayor for the city of Chicago yesterday.
Good.
Heck of a run.
With nearly 99% of the precincts reporting, she finished third in Tuesday's election. The runoff will now feature former Chicago Public Schools CEO Paul Vallis, who won 33.77%, and Cook County Commissioner and Chicago Teachers Union organizer Brandon Johnson, who wound up with 20.29%. That'll happen April 4th, the runoff. To decide
Nobody
who
wants to
becomes
run, do they?
mayor.
No.
Just continue to
I'm out.
get candidates who are already entrenched in the public class.
A passenger train and a freight train collided late Tuesday in central Greece, killing at least 36 people and leading to the arrest of a station master. The crash, which also injured 85 people, occurred shortly before midnight in the Tempe Valley in central Greece. At least 66 of those injured were still hospitalized as of this morning. The passenger train was traveling from the capital, Athens, to Thessaloniki, Greece's second largest city. Bureau of Criminal Apprehension's Minnesota Fusion Center is investigating a number of fake school shooting calls made in recent days. According to the Minnesota Department of Public Safety, 8 hoax calls, also known as swatting calls, were made in a span of 2 days to Minnesota 911 call centers. It appears all the calls came from the same person who used voice over IP to conduct calls. The FBI defined swatting as a form of harassment meant to deceive emergency service providers into sending police and other first responders to another address under false pretenses. In all of 2022, 27 fake school shooting calls were reported in Minnesota. 17, you might remember, happened all at once in September.
Sanibel Jim, talk about timing. He sold on Sanibel before Ian hit.
Okay.
And he's now in Cape Coral. He's not suffering. But he's noting that the defeat of Lori Lightfoot, as with all socialist-run cities, this incompetent Democrat was one of the worst. But after hearing so many disastrous accounts by my Chicago Police Department buddies of what she did to their department, I am not sure they can recover in our lifetime.
Well, you're burying the lead. Wait a minute. So is Sanibel Jim now Cape Coral Jim?
No, I think he's renting now.
Oh, okay.
Just a little vacation.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Despite higher prices, consumers are still spending, although not as much as they were a year ago. As of January, 60% of all U.S. adults, including 45% of high-income earners, were living, they said, paycheck to paycheck, according to a new Lending Club report. That's down from 64% a year earlier, suggesting that last year's spending cutbacks have improved some consumers' financial situation.
I bought a big ticket item last month. I just paid for it a couple of days ago. $2 235 gallons of fuel oil, which cost almost $1,000.
Huh.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. For the house I'm broadcasting from.
Holy crap.
Yep.
Linda Kasabian, who stood lookout.
She
while other-
was Manson?
Yeah,
Yep.
she was in
Yeah.
the family.
Yeah.
She was a lookout while other members of the Manson family engaged in 2 nights of murder in 1969, and then, after an immunity deal, became a pivotal prosecution witness in the trials that put Manson and 4 of his other followers in prison. She died in January. It was just announced in Tacoma, Washington. She was 73 years old. A notice in the News Tribune of Tacoma recorded the death, gave no cause. For the most part, Kasabian had tried to keep a low profile since the killings and had gone under several names. At her death, she was using the name Linda Chiochios. Kasabian had recently turned 20 in July 1969, when she left her husband, Robert Kasabian, and went to live on the Spawn Ranch, the old movie set in Los Angeles, where Manson and his followers were camped out.
She didn't
got there-
age well. I saw a picture of her.
Well, do any of us?
She didn't age well.
I think I'm doing all right.
She went to the Spawn Ranch, where drugs and sex were plentiful and where Manson, a habitual criminal and frustrated musician, held a psychological grip on his followers. He harbored hateful ideas about black people and tried to set off a race war, leading him to send Kasabian, Susan Atkins, Patricia Krenwinkel, and Charlie Watson out on a murderous mission. August 9, 1969, Kasabian waited at the car as a lookout, while the others killed 5 people, including the actress Sharon Tate. The next night, this time with Manson along, the group went to the home of Leno and Rosemary LaBianca. Manson tied the couple up and left with Kasabian. Several of his followers then stabbed the LaBiancas to death. Again, Kasabian, 73.
In the
years
movie Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, is that supposed to be the Spawn Ranch where Brad Pitt goes?
Yeah, with George Spahn. Yeah.
All right.
old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wish it went down the way he wrote that
too.
movie.
Me too.
Because that's just the funnest ending of any movie.
It really
just
was.
so fun.
Right. Complete revision of history.
Yeah, it's
Which I approved of.
Yeah, 100% wrong, but just delightful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry to say, a local suburb has made the FARC list of stories today.
No.
Police in Chaska say an extremely drunk motorist fell asleep while ordering during the daytime from an Arby's drive-thru.
Oh.
Uh-oh.
According to police, officers responded to the Arby's at about 1 o'clock Friday afternoon on the report of an unresponsive driver. Later found out to be a 43-year-old man and the only occupant of the vehicle. Police said luckily an observant patron noticed this and was able to open the driver's door, shift the vehicle into park, likely preventing any damage to property and injury to any people. Police say the man was too drunk to do a standardized field sobriety test, so a search warrant was executed. They got a blood sample. During that process, the man allegedly admitted he had drank a little bit of wine.
The people that live in that area will relate. What's more amazing, and it was pointed out on social media, is that entire area is under construction right now because they're redoing that highway intersection. The fact that he made it into that drive-through without running into anything is nothing short of amazing because that whole area is under construction.
Well, he probably had the window cracked.
That's true.
You know
Good
how that
point.
helps.
Yeah.
What did they do with the bullhead sandwich that he ordered?
Ooh. Curly fries too,
He was
huh?
going for the curly fries.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Oh, yuck.
You want to swig in here, Joe, before we head on over?
No.
In Saginaw, Michigan, a man found himself in jail. His own fault, really, because he called 911 to report that he paid a prostitute for a service that she was unwilling to provide.
Oh, somebody needed a
Oh.
bath, huh?
That's a low point when a prostitute's turning you down. Huh?
No way to go through life, son.
Boy.
Right.
The 34-year-old man called 911 at 7:52 a.m. on Saturday.
You want to come over for brunch?
This wasn't the same guy that went through Arby's, was it?
No, I don't think so, unless he went from Saginaw to Chaska. You never know. This happened on Saturday morning, 7:52, requesting police to his residence. Police Detective Sergeant Matthew Guro said the man said he had paid the woman $10 for a sex act.
Oh, $10 Annie.
Well, that's the dollar store, isn't it?
And then
$10
$10
Tessie.
What do you got for $10?
What can I get?
I'm going to need all that.
she took the money, but then didn't provide the service.
Oh, she's a thief.
The man told police he wanted his money back.
Yeah.
The 24-year-old woman was still present when officers got there. There was no physical altercation, they said, between the man and woman. Officers arrested the man on a misdemeanor charge of accosting and solicitation, and the woman on a charge of prostitution, both free on bond
Kind of
at the time.
sad morning.
Yeah,
Now,
it's a tough one.
they both had prior home invasion felonies.
Oh,
so
no.
this fella,
Yeah,
he had a prior bond out for him,
right.
and he called police because the prostitute wouldn't do what he
Yeah,
wanted. So
there's not a
I don't
lot of
think we're-
sharp characters out there.
no, we're not dealing with a brain
No.
surgeon.
John, thank you
So
very
they're
much.
forfeiting that bond.
You bet.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think so,
right, John.
Rook. Yeah.
Also, have
That's
you watched
true.
the Harry Nielsen one? You
No.
should watch that.
No.
Oh, it's wonderful. Who is
I've
Harry
been
Nielsen?
tempted to. I've been tempted to watch that
Oh, it's
one.
excellent.
Ruck, this is going to be the sneak one. See, he snuck it in.
See how that works?
I'm just going to start hitting record.
You cannot stop him. He'll just make a move. Joe Souchere.
Only because they come to us. All the way from Marloth Park in Mpumalanga, South Africa, from the Traveling Lymans at worldwidewaftage.com. It was on this day
March 1.
in 1856, the territorial legislature incorporated the St. Peter Company, which was authorized to engage in milling and water power work and to develop real estate. The company's stockholders hoped to move the state capital to St. Peter, but their efforts were thwarted. See Feb 27. James J. Hill would purchase the company charter in 1901, hoping that its real estate powers would prove useful to the Great Northern Railway. On this day in 1856,
3-1.
Minneapolis was approved for a town government by the territorial legislature. It would become a city 10 years later. The legislature also formed 3 counties: Lake County, named for Lake Superior; McLeod County, named for Martin McLeod, a fur trader and a member of the territorial legislature; and Pine County, named for the extensive pine forests of the region, or perhaps for the Pine River and Pine Lakes. On this day in 1881,
March 1st.
the first state capitol burned. 300 people escaped safely, but the building, including the law library, was a total loss. Luckily, most of the Minnesota Historical Society artifacts were rescued from the basement. A second capitol was built on the same site, a square block bounded by Wabasha, Cedar, Exchange, and 10th Street, but was later replaced by the structure we know today, designed by Cass Gilbert. On this day in 1899, The Theory of the Leisure Class, an economic study of institutions authored by Thorstein Veblen, was published. A graduate of Carleton College, Veblen earned recognition as a dynamic economist and social theorist, and his book remained influential in the 21st century. And on this day,
It's a long one.
in 1921, Patrick Desjardins was born on the Red Lake Reservation. As an artist, he painted colorful, stylized images of traditional Ojibwe life.
Nice.
I've heard of him. And finally, on this day,
March 1.
in 1994, Runaway Train by Soul Asylum won the Grammy for Best Rock Song.
It's a great tune.
It is.
Yep.
And they never really got over the hump, did they? Into mass stardom, or did they? I don't think they filled arenas, did they?
I don't think so.
John, anyone? Staff?
I don't think so, but they did okay. I mean, they had a nice career.
That
Still do.
album is really good, though. I like that
Well,
album.
didn't the one dude married Winona Ryder? The lead
That I
singer?
don't know, but it's ringing a bell.
Dave Perner.
Is that who it was?
They hung out a while.
Dave Perner's the singer. Yeah.
The Horse They Rode In On is also a good album.
Yeah.
Are they the ones
Let's
that
see,
do the Thanksgiving show every year, Kenny, at First Ave? Is that Soul Asylum?
Curtis A does
You're
a
thinking
John
of
Lennon
Curtis
show.
A.
Oh, is that what I'm thinking of? Okay. Sorry.
There was a documentary on PBS the other night about First Avenue.
Was it tedious?
Yeah, but the guy who ran it, for some reason, he's really striking me as familiar, like I've met him.
Steve,
Kind of a big, sloppy-looking guy.
Steve, why can't I remember Steve's last name?
Why-
He married
why would I
Cindy
know
Lawson.
him?
He was there 100 years. He was the one that booked Werewolves of London guy 4 times a year. Yeah, they were good friends. Steve. I can't remember his name.
Well, I
Sorry.
know who you mean, but boy, he looked familiar.
Steve McClellan.
I don't know if that's the guy I'm thinking of.
Oh.
Perner started dating actress Winona Ryder after the pair were introduced at Soul Asylum's performance on MTV Unplugged. In 93, they broke up 3 years later. Perner lived in Bywater, New Orleans, Louisiana for a time and still maintains a residence and recording studio in New Orleans. He also maintains a residence in Minneapolis. He has a son, Eli, with his ex-wife.
Huh.
Probably listen to the podcast
Well,
right
good
now.
luck, Dave.
I have my doubts.
Yeah.
I have my doubts.
Since we've unveiled a lot of controversial takes on this show today, I hate the new Twins uniform. I just want that to be known publicly.
I haven't
Wow.
really seen them yet.
I hate their new
Unlike you, I haven't been able to watch the ball game
Yeah,
today.
I haven't seen them yet, so Chris, I can't help you.
Do me a favor, guys. Do me a favor for it. Just get a piece of paper and a pencil.
Got
Yeah.
it. How about a marker?
Take 5639
Oh, God.
56:39
and
Yeah.
subtract 5103.
minus 5103.
536.
536.
Perfect. Okay. So you don't have to apologize right now on the podcast, but I would like you to apologize eventually in writing, or I'll take verbal apologies.
For
St. Paul, Minnesota, 44th parallel, 56 minutes, 39 seconds. Waconia, 44 degrees, 51 minutes, and 3 seconds. That is south.
Joe,
MFers. That
say
is
it.
south.
Say it,
Waconia
Joe.
is south.
So, Joe, say it.
It might be a little west,
Who
but it's
gives a
south.
bleep?
Joe, say it.
Say
Accuracy.
what? Goodbye?
Yeah.
Thank you, GLers.
Thank you, GLers.
Thank you, GLers.
South. Biatches.
Waconia is not south.
56. That's west. That's fine. But it sure the hell is south.
Waconia
That's
is
the most research you've done in your entire career.
I'm done for the year. I'm done for the year.
He looked up the what would you call it? The
Coordinates.
longitude
Longitude,
And latitude.
and latitude of Waconia.
Yeah, and I was right. So eat it.
Okay.
Oh, I have to do the outro here, don't I?
Yeah.
Got so excited.
Please.
I'm
You gotta do that
kind of
job
tired
thing.
from all that research.
Yeah, we
here's
could
the
tell
deal.
you're sweating.
PodMN on your smartphone will get you other latitude and longitude podcasts that you can listen to. Going to GarageLogic.com and signing up for the Garage Logic Town Council. And checking out the online store is a very smart thing to do. And if you flip over to YouTube, you can check out Garage Logic and subscribe. That's all you got to do. 56 to 51.
Oh, that's not it.
Huh? Do what now?
I got the wrong.